Greetings and welcome to my presentation. My name is John Wetter. I'm the Director of Technology and Information Services for Hopkins Public Schools in Hopkins, Minnesota. And today we're going to be talking about a couple big items, a couple items that we've been certainly embedded in over the last few years. One is really talking about having what does your school environment look like? How do you really make sure that you are being student-centered in everything that you're doing? And this comes really into the crux of what we're doing is being student-centered, and how do we do that in a pandemic? And there's really two items that we really look at here, and all of them come together, all three items, really having a safe environment, a welcoming space, and an easy to access support. And so that is how we, at the core of everything that we're doing, make sure that our students feel welcome and are able to learn in our environment. And so as we look through that, let's take a look at our safe environment. How do you feel safe in the environment that you're in? Well, there's a lot of different definitions that you can look at here, and some of that depends on the exact subject that you are speaking to. In our case, we really are going to look at a full holistic approach to that environment. How do you feel welcome? When we really look at kind of building out, kind of Maslow's core pieces around what you need to do to be able to learn an environment, number one is feeling safe, feeling physically safe. We certainly know in schools in the United States, that's something that we need to be thinking about. How do we ensure that we have a safe environment so students feel that they have that need met and that they then can start to move on into their learning? How can they have take being safe in their authentic self? How can a student feel they're being seen, they're being heard, they're actually participating in their education? We know this has been a challenge as we've gone back and forth in person to virtual. We also know that some of our students have thrived in that virtual environment. And so how do we make sure that we have all of those tools needed so that that student can feel welcomed in their environment, whatever that environment might be, whether that be an in-person environment, whether that be a virtual environment, whether we be looking at some sort of a hybrid type of a setup for that student. Very important to make sure that they're feeling like they have a safe place to be, like they are there with their peers, they're there with their friends, their staff that they interact with, help them feel welcome and safe. So being authentic in yourself as well. Do you feel like people are seeing you as you? Do you feel like you're able to present yourself to your staff, to your friends, to your colleagues, making sure that you feel safe in being who you are, safe in your person, and that your teachers look like you. We certainly want to make sure that all of our students can see someone in a trusted adult I can be that person someday, and I want to be that person. I'm excited to be that person, and I want to be in class with them. So I feel safe in being able to be myself and to be able to participate in this class. So that's big. That's something that we're looking for all the time, and really making sure that people feel like they're safe. Second item that we're looking at is a welcoming space. So once you feel safe, what does that space feel like? Sometimes these two pieces can be viewed as being at odds with each other. A prison, certainly it could be safe, right, from the people from the outside. That's not what we want this to look like. We want our schools to be a very welcoming environment. We also want them to feel safe. We don't want them to feel like we are perpetuating that school to prison pipeline. And how do we make sure that students don't feel that way? How do we make sure, again, they're feeling safe and they can be their authentic self and they have someone that can welcome them into that space? That space can look like a lot of different things. It can look like a small room where you can have individual one-on-one interactions with someone. That space can be a large space, like the one shown here, where you have multiple types of seating available so students can sit in whatever makes sense for them. Maybe they want to relax on a couch. Maybe they want to sit at a table because they know they have things they need to work on and want to be able to spread out and have several things surrounding them as they do their schoolwork. Maybe they need to sit down with a couple other students and they're working on a group project. They want to huddle around a screen on the wall. They want to huddle around a screen at a desk to be able to work through a project together and see what they're working through. All of these pieces are what really bring a welcoming space. And we need to think that our welcoming spaces don't all look identical to each other. Our welcoming spaces aren't just limited to the constructed spaces within our schools. We have to look at our outdoor plans as well. Here in Hopkins, we have extensively invested into our outdoor learning spaces as well. We want students to get outside, and that's not just because of COVID. That is what we want our teaching and learning to look like. We should be part of the environment, and part of the environment is outside. Even in Minnesota in the winter, we want our students to be outside and learning and be excited to do so. So we have these learning classrooms ready to go outside. You can be outside. We've built out outdoor Wi-Fi at our schools so that they still, we want students to be working with in nature. In this setup, you can see they're working with putting together projects on tables outside. But we also know that sometimes that might be involving technology. We want them to be able to upload some pictures to a lesson that they're working on, or they're having some digital collaborations that students can work together and pull all of those different elements together and have that ready to go. So again, whatever that space is, it's welcoming, it's inviting, students feel like they belong there, and they can continue to work together and move toward the goals that are happening with their class. Next up is easy to access support. And I look at this as everybody needs a cheerleader. Whether you're a teacher having a struggle with your technology, whether you are a student who wants to up your game, who wants to do what's next, or something's just broke and you need it fixed. Again, you're wanting to look for who is that cheerleader, who can be there to help me, who can be there to make sure that everything I need is getting taken care of. The commitment has to be there, both to supporting staff as well as to supporting students. Everything we do in K-12 education is around students. We have to make sure that we have that all ready to go. We have to make sure that we are doing the best that we can. And in that, staff have to feel competent and confident with the technology that they're using. We have an instructor who does not feel confident with where they are and what's happening in their classroom. They are going to be seen. Students are so good at seeing if their instructor is not there with them in comfort and what that lesson delivery looks like and what's happening. They know it, and they know it instantly. And so we really want to make sure that everyone feels like they're confident in what's happening next. Are those digital tools accessible? If staff don't feel like they're accessible, if students don't feel like they can use those tools in their class every day and understand how to interact, understand what that looks like, and know how to be safe, we won't be able to have that shared understanding unless we can get there. So So important to make sure that everybody has that cheerleader, somebody who's ready to go and really able to make that happen. And so thinking about that and making sure we are authentically inclusive with all of our students um, is so important in what we're doing here at Hopkins. You know, we look at the traits that we want our students to have when they graduate Hopkins as our part of our Vision 2031, and making sure that every single student graduates being a critical thinker. How do we develop those critical thinking skills? Sometimes that can enter into the second part of our conversation here is students are going to test boundaries. Students are very good at testing boundaries. And so we want to be able to provide those guardrails, help them understand, here's what we can do. Let's look at it. Let's provide supports. Can we provide a peer to work with closely and help understand maybe why, when you're digging around in that area of our digital space, maybe that's not a good thing at the moment. So, but again, as one of our pillars of being a critical thinker, we want our students to be testing those boundaries, and we know they need to be. We want our students to feel be global and to be well traveled. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they are actually traveling. Maybe it does. In our virtual school, students are enrolled and will be traveling. And that's why they're part of our virtual school, is they will be attending classes from who knows where. It doesn't matter where. As long as they have an internet connection, they are able to participate. And so that's where we want to make sure that all of our students have access to that. All of our students feel welcomed, again, that they have that cheerleader and they have easy access to support, no matter where they're joining us from. We want all of our students to be confident. Remember, I mentioned that idea of being competent and confident in the work that you're doing and the tools that you're using and what that classroom looks like, and making sure our staff and our students feel that way is so important. Along with all of our students having a voice. You know, I mentioned, how do you feel welcome in a space? You feel like your voice can be heard. You feel like your authentic self can be part of the conversation. So that's where we're looking at there and thinking about what is that trait we're looking for in our graduates. So the next item we really look at for our traits and our graduates is really being holistic. And that's what we're here talking about today, is how do we help our students both in this physical form? How do we get through the pandemic? How do we make sure students have all of those supports that they absolutely need to have? As well as, how do we really be empathetic for our students and our staff? Understand where they're joining us from. We know a lot has been happening in the world. You know, we are, Minneapolis is our neighboring city. We know that following the murder of George Floyd, we had students who literally lost their houses following the unrest. We had students who were found themselves without a place to be. And so making sure that we understood where those students were at, making sure that we had the supports available to help them and their families with what they needed was important. And that's not just to have them be in school, but that's, again, being part of that whole person, making sure that we're taking care of them so that they can be present when it is time to learn in class. So those are the pieces that we really look at and help us understand what we want our students' participation to look like, what we want those traits of our learners to be as they graduate from our school district. So that next piece we look at is now thinking about, we've looked at how do our students feel safe? Well, how do we think about that in a digital sense? Security is, certainly something that has gained prominence in the headlines. Hearing about data being breached, hearing about information being lost, hearing about people being taken advantage of and their information locked up. We know that this has been happening, for some time. I think it's gained more prominence and a wider awareness in the last few years. And certainly, as many organizations, including schools, have transitioned to home and to back again, and some spaces remaining in this virtual and hybrid space, security has gained an even bigger prominence. In K-12, security is hard. Very few school districts, including our own, have the resources to have a dedicated person looking at security. So thinking about what available resources are there, what available information is there, can feel very overwhelming when you are one of a couple IT folks in charge of thousands of student and staff devices. And so what I'm hoping as we look through our security pieces here today is to talk about that security isn't all that different from what we're already doing as a space for students to feel comfortable. It still involves a safe environment. It still involves a welcoming space, and it still involves easy to access support. So the same points applied to a digital space. So we have to think about that, a safe environment. What does a safe computing environment look like in a E12 school district? It's a fantastic question. Perhaps that means being protected from inappropriate content on the internet. Perhaps that is more of a security lens, making sure that from a security standpoint, your devices are at least harder to have that information breached from them. So very important piece here. We think about what does a safe environment look like. In Hopkins, we've taken a couple different approaches to what that safe environment might look like. First of all, we want staff to feel empowered to make their own decisions. You know, when do I need to install something? Do I need to install something? Really trying to keep that number of software that's installed by default as low as absolutely possible. Let staff have the agency to decide what software should be installed on the computers. The way to do that through Jamf Pro is with self-service. And whether that be on Mac OS, whether that be on iPad OS or iOS, across all of our Apple platform, we want to make sure that staff have that agency to install what they need when they need it, and let that be their decision around installing that. Around that, you know, with our staff as well, they need to be trusted to explore and seek new resources. So a couple things that this looks like is, you know, one direction that your security posture can go is toward that lockdown. And if you are in a very high compliance arena, sometimes some of that's not avoidable. However, I do see a trend in many spaces of where that is the easy route to take. And so that's the direction that people go. Not giving staff that agency of like, you are a professional, you need to be able to know what is available to you. Now, if we're looking to roll out something new across a wide area, we need to talk about that. There might be compliance pieces, there might be statutes within the state that we need to follow. In the state of Minnesota, we have a brand new statute that we have to comply with privacy pieces, and we have to report that to our caregivers and help them understand what digital tools are being used in our instruction. And so, and we want to be open and let our families ask any questions that they need to ask. And so we still need to trust staff to make those decisions around exploring new tools. You know, is it a new tool? Is it reworking an existing tool? Is it maybe a tool that we tried once and it didn't fit at that point, but now something's changed? Now we have to look at it again. any of those directions can be appropriate for what we are looking to do there. The next item is secure and compliant. And from this, we really leverage into both Jamf as well as partner Red Canary to make that happen. Across our entire fleet, we've utilized Jamf Protect to make sure all of our Macs are safe, secure, maintain compliance, maintain that their updates, and if there is anything that happens, we have immediately reporting and immediate response on that. We look at that really as a level up that we've done here, as that EDR compliance, but really taking that next level with Red Canary and having those managed responses. What happens when a staff member installs some sort of a browser hijack? What that they think might be something that's giving them coupons or something that's making money for them. Perhaps completely unaware that it installed with some piece of software. That's the double-edged sword, of that allowing our staff to be admin users on their devices so that they can explore and seek out new resources does mean that we need to make sure that we're monitoring for those pieces. Does a website all of a sudden flash up something that you can't read this because you don't have the Flash player installed? Click here to install it. And Jamf Protect is able to look and say, hey, this is purporting to be Flash and the signatures don't match. And we can have Red Canary immediately launch into a playbook of notifying us as well as acting upon that device, whether it be a removal, whether it be a blocking, and even up to actually locking that device. That's what that combination of Jamf Protect and Red Canary allow us to do. So we've utilized that here in Hopkins to make sure our entire fleet is covered. Red Canary also is great with the rest of our fleet. We know that we are by far a majority Apple school district. We also do have other clients involved, and Red Canary is able to take that telemetry from all of those different clients, pull it into the dashboard so that we can look at it together. We can make immediate decisions and have those playbooks ready to go. So that's how we achieve a safe environment digitally, is making sure our devices are up to date, making sure that signatures are there for X-Protect, for MRT, making sure all those pieces are happening, and then that Red Canary incident handling with those playbooks all ready to go. So whether it is the middle of a school day or whether, we know all of our teachers are busy people. Sometimes what we're looking to do is just get our own kids to bed in the evening and then have some time to either work on papers, work on grading papers, or that's that time to explore a new tool and find something. We can have those playbooks in Red Canary ready to go so that if that teacher does get into trouble somewhere that they don't intend to be, we're there and ready to help make sure that we're still providing a safe computing environment for them throughout their experience. A welcoming space. So when you look at this from a security standpoint, how do you provide a welcoming space? People need to feel like their laptop is theirs. We know we have policies in place. We know we have procedures in place to make sure we're protecting that, as I talked about in making sure that that computer is safe. But we need to make sure that staff also understand that. We don't want to find ourselves in a space where we have numerous security agents in place. We don't want to find ourselves in a place where those agents are not respectful of the person. I've heard a number of stories of where you have a brand new computer that immediately is acting like a 4 or 5 year old computer because of the security agents going on it. We know this is not a respectful computing environment for staff or for students. And so that's, again, why we choose our best of breed native applications that will work on all of our platforms, and why we've chosen the Jamf Protect along with Red Canary for our Mac OS. We don't want those agents to be in your face. We don't want them to impact the user experience. Again, you know, too often right now, the point that we're at in the security journey is around that lockdown phase. We're at the point right now where we have to maintain a safe environment, and so lock down all of these pieces. It's not a place to be where we're being respectful of our staff, we're not being respectful of our students. So we have to really look at what that looks like and how do we make sure that we're continuing to be a welcoming space and a secure space. And the last point I make here is also training for staff. Professional development needs to include all aspects of one's work life. We know, we're working with professionals and they are in the classroom every day and they have extensive training around the pedagogical side of teaching and learning. But we need to not make assumptions about what staff know and what they don't know. We need to make sure that we are helping, that basic operation of computers. When a staff member is looking at a computer as a tool, they don't know all of the versions they need to be on or what new features are capable of a new computer. That honestly is irrelevant to the work that they're doing unless it can directly impact the work that they're doing. And so a lot of these other pieces that we as technology folks are interested in and get excited about are completely irrelevant to so many of our staff. And we need to stop. We need to pay attention. We need to be ready to help and make sure that we're there when they need us and we're not making assumptions around what they do and what they don't know. I see oftentimes this conversation starts to turn into an ageist conversation around, well, our older teachers need help, and that is simply not true. I see teachers in all phases of their career that absolutely need to make sure that we have a helping hand available. And we do that through professional development. And so we need to make sure that that is intertwined with everything that we're doing to help them. The other piece is easy access to support. Again, in the security mindset is being there, whether it's virtually or in person, is being there for them. I talked about already from the security side of things, what that means for us is those automated playbooks. How do we make sure that as we're moving forward, that those playbooks are in place to help as a guardrail to make sure that our staff, don't get off into some of the parts of the internet that just are not a place that we want to be. And so just as we talk about with our students and being respectful, but also providing a safe environment, I don't want to lock down the environment. I want to provide guardrails so people can be critical thinkers. They can think about what that looks like for them. They can use their own voice to understand what their computing environment looks like, just as the same as they can of their school environment. And so those automated playbooks from a security standpoint are so critical in the work that we do and making sure that we can always be there virtually should something nefarious happen, as well as making sure that our service desk is available for staff that really need help. So when I think about service desk currently, I think about our technology help desk at that point. And as we move forward, wanting to grow that into a true IDLE service desk, thinking about a single spot to call for staff to get help, whether that be technology, whether that be instruction, whether that be human resources, of just making sure, again, that all of those pieces are being taken care of so that staff understand how to get help when they need it. So really thinking about that, again, always having a cheerleader, right? You want somebody to be there being ready to be able to help when they need that to happen. So thinking about that, of also making sure that we're constantly engaging with staff and what that looks like, what that means, having a roundtable discussion around what does having support available to you actually mean? What does that actually look like? And how do we make sure that we're providing that in every way that we possibly can? So to review, think back around some of these pieces that we've been discussing through is, how do we provide a safe environment, a welcoming space, and easy to access support? This should be at the root of every technical decision that you're making as a department. Do those learning walks. Go with your principal or go with an instructional leader in the classroom and understand, what decisions are you making from a technical standpoint that are having impact in the classroom? You may think of it as a single checkbox that you've changed in your wireless setup. And what that means is you just kicked every single student offline. Sure, they only need to re-tap on the wireless network again, but you've now potentially derailed 15 minutes of instructional time. And as we all know, time is the one thing that we don't get any more of. No matter what we do, no matter what we change, we cannot get more time. And so how do we think about all of those technical decisions that we're making? And remember, are they being respectful of our staff? Are they being respectful of our students? Are they providing a safe space? Are they feeling welcomed? And are they feeling supported? Security does not require taking away agency of staff. I'm just going to pause there. Security does not require taking away agency of staff. Security is one of the threads that lives within our environment that helps stitch all of those pieces together to make sure that we provide a great learning environment for everyone. But when you properly construct it and provide that professional development for staff, provide those guardrails, and also that backstop of, if something does get installed, you know that you have an automated playbook ready to provide immediate feedback to that staff member, whether it's just telling them, hey, there's a problem, whether it's telling the support person that's assigned to them, said, hey, check in with this person because something funny happened on their device last night. Or whether it means we need to do a full stop right now. We want people to have that security, but also not taking away their agency to be a professional on their device and do the work that they need to do. And last, but certainly not least, is invest in those native tool sets and expert partners. That's what we feel like we've done here at Hopkins, is really invested into those native tool sets. We've invested into Jamf Protect to make sure that we have that telemetry from all of our devices and understand what's happening all the time. If something does happen, we're able to respond in a very timely manner. And with that, having our expert partners and that threat monitoring provided by Red Canary to make sure when something does happen, it immediately can be assessed with experts, that there's no way a school district would be able to afford to have those people on staff to actually assess those threats, to have the telemetry coming from multiple sources, both our network infrastructure as well as our endpoints, as well as the browsing, all of those pieces of telemetry coming together, and have experts assessing that information and ready to act in either an immediate or a timely manner, whether that be taking action of shutting down a computer or isolating a computer, or whether that be an action of notifying technical support to reach out to that person. So those are really the key pieces that we looked at in our environment, and how we had both a pandemic of thinking about how do we do this learning, as well as how do we really make sure our environment is secure going forward. Not taking advantage of the pandemic, but certainly we had to rebuild a lot of stuff in a hurry. So making sure we had that lens toward being respectful of our staff, as well as making and building a secure environment around all of our pieces going forward, and not having any of that being dependent upon on-premise infrastructure. We know our staff are teaching from everywhere. We know our students are learning from everywhere. We want them to be well-traveled as a trait of a Hopkins graduate. So we need to make sure we have all of these supports in place to help them. And so with that, I say thank you for listening today. And if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and we'll be hearing from you soon. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.